Easy go.
Thanks for the walkthrough of how we can use Syndicate to create an investment club at ease. So I encourage all audiences to give it a try since there is a demo mode. So here are two questions that were asked by the pre-registered audiences. So first would be, since Outliers itself, you all are transiting from a pure venture kind of company to a DAO-like ventures. So do you believe DAOs will replace venture capital firms over time, just like what you all did?
Yeah, that's a great question. I honestly see a lot of pros and a lot of cons of transitioning from a venture capital firm into a venture DAO. So besides Syndicate, we also use a lot of different Web3 tools and DAO tools to facilitate the communication between Outliers VentureDAO with our extended community members. And the upsides basically are the three objectives we have defined before implementing Outliers Fund 3 on Syndicate, which is to give all the limited partners and venture partners a radical transparency through trustless consensus. Traditionally, as a venture capital firm, when we do our fundraising, we'll be asked to acquire fund license, custodian, auditing from Big Four, and so on. But since we deploy Outliers Fund 3 on Syndicate, you can not only view it on Syndicate, but also view it directly on the protocol level, which is Ethereum etherscan.com, etherscan.io. And that solves the trust, security, confidence problem between us as the fund manager, general partner, as well as the limited partners who are putting capital. The second objective is actually my favorite and my most important reason for pushing from a venture capital to a venture DAO, which is to align the interest and leverage all of our community members as a collective intelligence-driven VC. I realized that there is over 100 very, very good friends of Outliers. In the past 5 to 6 years, they have been contributing in a different capacity compared to our full-time team members. Some of them are referring deals to us on a weekly basis. Some of them can perform technical due diligence with us. Some of them from the community is doing post-investment portfolio management and exit strategy with us. And I have always found it a hard time when we are positioned as a venture capital firm to reward, quantify their contributions to Outliers. I cannot go back to our legal counsel, ask our lawyer to draft a new term, draft a new incentive scheme just for a community member who are hosting an Outliers offline summit in Hawaii, for example. But this is able to be done. I think the first one is solved entirely from Syndicate. Actually, before meeting Syndicate, we were already hired 2 smart contract developers and trying to build the dashboard that Syndicate already invented. The second one was perfectly being solved by another Web3 tool called app.dwork.xyz. You can see that every kind of project's task pipeline can be deployed on this Web3 Trello with tokenized payment. So for example, if today someone from the audience or someone from our extended community in Discord find this presentation very, very insightful and wanted to help us reach out to more Chinese audience or Vietnamese audience, they can actually help translate this into their own Miro or Medium as an article, and then they can submit up here as a task or reward around 100 USDC for this kind of content contribution, as well as partnership, investment operation, fundraising, portfolio management, brand and design, research and development, and so on. These are pretty much the upside I see as a venture DAO, as well as the third one that our fund operation is the assets is more liquid. The stakeholders dynamics has become closer. But when it comes to investment decision or community and governance decisions, I have internally sensed the kind of a less efficient way of pushing things. Like before transitioning into a venture DAO, basically partners of Outliers can get on a call and make a decision very quick within a call. But right now we need to care about our community members. So a lot of our community governance decisions need to go through a much lengthy, fair, open, decentralized process of voting. That includes these people, and we're designing the gamifying levels for people based on their contribution to decide the weight of their voting power as well.
Since you're mentioning about the decision making in terms of a DAO-like venture, so it relates to the question asked by the audience in the chat box. So the question is, people say that the good investment comes from the uncommon decision made by a few people. So how do you think of the quality of the mutual decision from a venture DAO? Any pros and cons, just like you did before, and how to overcome the cons, if any? So as if like the sophisticated procedures.
That's a very good question that I've been debating within myself and my partners. I do believe that if we're talking about outliers, capturing the super outliers in the world, it means that the quality, the upside, the huge growth potential of an outliers can usually be seen by only a small group of people at the very early stage. If everyone can spot the high growth potential of an early stage ventures, then having a general partner, having a fund manager is basically not necessary. The way that I will tackle this is, for example, there is, say, if Jenn from Syndicate is one of our limited partners, if Aiden from Unum ID is one of our portfolio founders, and Poseidon is a general partner of this fund. The way we are trying to do this, and it can be synchronized with Syndicate very perfectly on a protocol level, is that we'll allow all the 100 plus community members to voluntarily mint one to several non-transferable NFTs representing their decentralized IDs and social credibility and expertise on a certain investment tracks. For example, we invest in infrastructure, DeFi, GameFi, SocialFi, and DAOs. If we are talking about DeFi, if say there are 5 DeFi projects that Jenn has sourced, participate in the evaluation and decision process in 2022, as well as Poseidon have brought in 5 different DeFi projects. Aiden also brought in 5 DeFi projects. if by end of this year, we realize that Poseidon's 5 DeFi projects all got listed on exchange or have in market value, and their average performance is negative 78%, compared to Jenn's involving 5 DeFi projects that have an average performance of positive 500%. There is going to be a leaderboard in our Discord. We can display that on Syndicate as well, that you will see Jenn's NFT value ranking number 3 out of all the 100+ community members. While Poseidon, although should be a key decision maker traditionally, as the general partner who have the highest weight sitting in the IC board, but probably because I have been too focused on infrastructure level research innovations in the past 2 years, I totally missed out the entire DeFi summer. My ranking, social credibility, and expertise in DeFi, the specific investment track, can only be ranked 88 out of 100 people. Then next year, when we are evaluating, making decisions on the 16th DeFi projects, you will see Aidan, our portfolio founder, having a higher weight than Jenn, our limited partners, than Poseidon in this specific DeFi track. And I think this will unlock a whole new potential of creating a whole new different credentials, track records, resumes for investment talents, researchers, developers in the Web3 field. Instead of showing that you have worked 10 years in Sequoia, 10 years at A16Z, and then another 10 years at Goldman Sachs, in the future, I would rather recruit talents that can show they are ranking number 3 in Outliers VC DAO in terms of DeFi, maybe ranking number 1 in global coin research, ranking number 5 in Friends with Benefits and other DAO. These are much more close to the actual radical meritocracy we're talking about these days. In Chinese, 就是用实力说话的一种方式. And it's very data backed and data driven. I think it would help us screen out the best talents in the best field. And you will see when we are electing Outliers Fund 4 partners and IC members, some of the original limited partners might become general partners of Fund 4. And maybe some of the general partner from Fund 3 went on to become portfolio founders, limited partners, venture partners, ecosystem partners. All in all, I think the most efficient DAO should be one that people can convert their time, capital, connections, knowledge, skills, perception, experience into social credibility and financial incentive, as well as the other way around. Yeah, that's how I would tackle this. And we have been talking to Will Pepper from Syndicate about incorporating this mechanism, but it's actually very, very hard. It's very groundbreaking, I would say. The biggest bottleneck is that you need to spend some time educating this new paradigm shift, this new concept to all of the community members that come with different engagement level.
Yeah, I think it's cool by putting weight on each individual based on their precisions and how professional they are. And the ranking kind of idea is actually really, really revolutionary idea for everyone. So in this way, I think it explains that how Outliers DAO is able to respect the uncommon decision in a way that everyone is actually involved in the decision making. Actually, it's kind of just like us, but we did it in a much simpler way. So For example, like our founding partner, Eric, he will have two voting power instead of just one, other than just other investment analysts, just like me and others. So it's a really cool idea in general. So here comes with another question. And how will the next generation of Web3 native firms be structured? I think in this way, Jenn will be able to answer the question if you have any thoughts.
Yes. Do you mind just repeating that question?
Yeah. So how will the next generation of the Web3 kind of like native firms, companies be structured? So is it gonna be like half DAO, half higher? So like how the hierarchy system will come in place with DAO-like company?
Yeah, so I can talk a little bit from what we have seen with our customers and sort of project that out. You know, when we all like within the Web3 community started to talk about DAOs, we very much focused on this idea of decentralized, everyone is part of the decision-making process and things like that. And I do believe genuinely that there are some structures in which that works really well, right? Like if you are a very small DAO, you have very hyper focus on some of the, you know, the mission that you're trying to accomplish, and the surface of decision, the surface area of the decisions that you're trying to make is smaller. It does make sense for people to come to the table on equal footing and make decisions together. Everyone is part of that, right? But when you talk about something where, you know, there is a VentureDAO, there is a reason why in a lot of venture firms, you know, there's a very particular governance structure. Who gets to veto what, and whose, you know, input carries, you know, higher value than the other, and things like that. And it sort of comes, that structure kind of comes into play because of the experience, their track record, you know, in the investing arena. And so you will see some of the structures be translated to DAOs as well. Like, you know, Poseidon kind of showed how people can build their reputations on chain. And perhaps the next step would be, based on that reputation, how does their voting structure and how does their decision, you know, how is their decision taken into account in order to make an informed decision on certain transactions and investments and things like that. So we do believe that over time, folks will start to adopt more, you know, current organizational behavioral structures, as well as, you know, what works well when there is a large internet community that comes together, and how that has evolved the organizational behavior and what structures come out of that, you know, will also be reflected. We've been able to see all across the spectrum already, and we have able to see folks who came in thinking that a particular hierarchy is what worked very well, change that strategy. And folks who have come in to say, hey, all of the community members has a say in something, then come to realize actually, for certain decisions, 75% of the community doesn't care about that decision because they are not very well informed, and it's actually more resource intensive to try to educate everyone. And so perhaps it is best to just give some of the voting power to folks who are already well informed about that decision and such. So yeah, that's kind of what we're seeing. And I think that's kind of what we'll see more of over time. But the one thing is for sure is how people's experience, people's contribution to the community and these investing decisions are taken into account. You know, as Poseidon mentioned, you know, it no longer is going to be like, oh, because you worked at XYZ place for so long, you have additional voting power or anything. It'll come based on what have you been able to tangibly show to the world that you're valuable in, where your insights are valuable. And that for sure will start to translate more and more.
I think you just mentioned a good element for it to come in place with the Web3 native firms, which is like a good voting system. So I think in one way, it respects everyone's decision while making a decision fast and smooth. So other than that, I think it will be also good to mention how objective too in the Outliers venture. So I think there is a flexibility to provide incentive to whoever that can help Outliers DAOs in any sectors. So Poseidon, would it be good to provide us an example of how you all were able to incentivize people that are able to help you in some ways?
Yeah, so just as I mentioned, right now we are trying to give out incentives to mainly non-investment pipeline kind of task. So to leverage over 100 people, originally our team is smaller than 10, as a very small venture fund that you have very limited management fee to have just several partners, several associate, several analysts. You will always want to prioritize recruiting and keeping your team very tight. Most of everyone is working on investment pipeline, from deal sourcing, deal evaluation, due diligence, investment decision, term sheet negotiation, portfolio management, to all the way to exit strategy. But I think in the world of Web3, DAO, and NFT, it is far more beyond just doing good in your investment pipeline. So we currently find it a very good way to separate the Outliers team, which mainly conduct the major deal making on the investment pipeline, as well as Outliers DAO, which is still very tight, but it has in between, it will probably always be in between 100 to 200 community members. We don't restrict them to declare a full-time job at Outliers. They can commit 5 hours per week, 20 hours per week. Some of them, 2 of our limited partners actually reached out to me, wanted to be intern at Outliers. And they are each doing marketing or community building for us on Discord. And the way we are giving out incentives is to take out a portion of our management fee using platforms like DWork to quantify every task they can do. The concept of using DWork is essentially transition our mindset from rewarding people's contributing time and efforts into actual conversions and achievement. But it also has a downside. Everything has a downside if it has huge upside, I would say. The biggest downside that I've realized after incepting DWork for almost a quarter is that people would tend and be incentivized to do what they are good at, as smaller tasks as possible. I have already sensed that not only our community members, but also our full-time Outliers team. Many of them are, for example, many of them are writing a lot of investment memos and doing a lot of deal evaluation form and due diligence form for deals that might have less quality, which means in their mindset, they already know that this deal would not go through, would not pass our investment committee board, but they will still try to do that because they already learned, they already built out a template that allows them to finish an investment memo within 30 minutes. So they can write a lot of investment memos to get a lot of 100 USDC on our keyword. And that is something we should be very cautious about, that people might favor and prioritize their time and energy on quantity over quality if everything can be quantified as task and project level. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for the sharing.
Yeah, thanks, Eugene. So yeah, it's a great pleasure, Jenn and Poseidon on the call, and to share the thoughts of the future of the organization in terms of the investment arm. And so yeah, please feel free to share your Twitter account on the chat box, and everyone on the call can follow both Syndicate, Jenn, and Poseidon, and Outliers.
I think that's all for today, and we will see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.